Hi everybody, we're in the middle of chapter 2, and we're basically beginning of page 10, on the pages on the bottom, number 10. 9 in English and 10 in Hebrew. So, we discussed why is there so many types of souls, of Jewish souls, if all Jewish souls come from the same place. So we gave once the example, so now we actually have two examples. One example, the example that the author brings over here, of a child, that every part of the child's organs come from the seed of the father. But yet, from the same seed comes different parts of the body. And the reason why it takes 9 months for pregnancy, because from that seed, not only that it forms the more refined organs of the body, also the least refined. Even the hand, the legs, and we said the last thing that gets formed is the hair and the nail at the end of the 9th month, at the end of the pregnancy. So basically what happens is the same semen, the same seed has to go through a process, and in the first, and the more time passes, the more it becomes more physical and coarse, and more physical and coarse organs are formed from it. So that's why the beginning of the fetus is just very refined. It's very refined, and the whole body is in a very refined level, and it's the most refined organs get formed first, and then on and on and on. So similarly, the neshama originally comes from the sphere of Chachma of Atzilus, which we said there is 4 worlds, and each world has 10 sphere, 10 levels. So, and the highest level of the highest world, which is Chachma of Atzilus, wisdom of the world of Atzilus, this is where heavens and earth meet. In other words, that's where the origins of the infinity of God dwells. And that's where every neshama comes from. That's like the essence of God is revealed there. And that's where every soul comes from. But because the soul comes down through the journey of 40 levels, because 10 levels in Atzilus, then the next world, Bria, then Yetzirah, and we actually say it every morning. When we say the prayer of Elokai Neshama, we talk about how the Neshama goes through the process. We say Ata Brata, which means, the first we say Tehorai, it's pure, because that's where the Neshama is in the first world, that's the level of purity. Then we say Ata Brata, it came down to the level of creation. The next world is second world is the world of creation. Then Ata Yitzata, the world of formation, Yetzirah. Ata Nefachta, you blew it in my nostrils, that's in the world of Asiyah. So we talk about every morning, we thank Hashem for this, that Hashem brought down the Neshama through this long journey to this world. Now, just like pregnancy, that the 9 months, each one affects to make it more and more physical, more coarse, so the same with the Neshama, because he goes through all these levels, once it comes here, then it becomes a much more physical and coarse than the way it is up there. So the question is, still every neshama goes through these 40 levels. So everybody should have the same coarse physical neshama. So this is, again, similar to the fetus. And this is, we give the example, very simple example. Imagine you are traveling from, let's say, from Israel to New York. And on the way, you start being off, let's say, in Russia. So there's 2 ways there's 2 types of ways how you travel into another country. Either you stay in the airport for a couple of hours, and then you get straight back on a connecting flight. So then it didn't really make any difference the fact that you were in Russia. Or you took advantage and you took your time in Russia, you stayed there for a whole week, or even longer maybe, and you started learning the language, and you assimilated a little bit, and a bit of the culture get maybe stuck on you, whatever, so that's a different way. So it's called, one is called makif, and one is malbish. One is more superficial, you were just happened to be in this area, but it didn't really affect you. But then you could be in a place that it will affect you. So this is what it means. this neshama, like for example, let's take the example of Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama that comes from the highest level, from the chachma of the world of Atzilut. So his neshama happens to go through all the 40 levels, but those levels didn't affect it. It remained its purity of the highest level. So it just happened to go through, because everything has to go through all the 40 levels, but it didn't really affect it. But when we're talking about someone, let's say, that has the lowest level of soul, it means that every level it went through, it had its impact on it, and the neshama slowly but surely became more and more physical, more coarse, and less, and it doesn't have the same level of revelation like the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. So everybody goes through the same journey, but everybody's affected differently. So that's why we have so many types of neshamas. Everybody is affected by different levels, and from each level, on different level, you could be affected. So that's what they're. And the same is with the way a child is formed in a woman's womb, right? Because they all come from the same seeds, but some the seed remain in its refined level, and one becomes more coarse, like let's say the lungs, the brain. They are formed after a little process. Other parts of the body, the semen has to go through more process, like the legs, like the nails. The nails go through the most process. It has to become very physical, very coarse. So we understand that it could be one source. Like a teacher could be teaching a class and everybody understands on different levels. So there could be differences even though it's one source. So that's answering the question we asked before. If it's one source, there could be so many levels. That's the answer. But this, again, like we said last week, this also explains to us why in Judaism it's so important to have the connection to the tzaddikim, to the leaders of the generation. Because if we are like a body, and so we understand that the connection to a child is connected, every part of his body is connected to his parents through his brain. So too, we're connected to Hashem through the tzaddikim. So, what I mean, obviously we're all essentially connected to Hashem without the tzaddikim, but if we want to have every part of the body comes from the seed of the father and the mother. But what's the difference in the brain and the rest of the body? That the brain is aware of it. In the brain there's more of a revelation. That's a tzaddik. A tzaddik is that his connection to God is revealed. And when we are connected with the tzaddik, and this is one of the main teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, the importance of dveikus in tzaddikim, that the reason why it's so important to be attached to tzaddikim, because by them the revelation, by them their attachment to Hashem is revealed. And when we're connected when the body is connected to the head, we're able to achieve a much more powerful connection with Hashem, which much more revealed way. And when we look in the Torah, we're going to start learning today. This is actually, I don't know if we learned it last week or not. We already started with this.
I think we got to here.
Oh, we did learn this. Oh, okay. So as we learned last week, that this is actually one of the mitzvot. The way Chassidus explains this mitzvah, because there's a mitzvah which is also logical. There's a mitzvah ledov kabo. There's a mitzvah in the Torah, one of the commandments. Attach yourself to God. And the Talmud asks, how is it possible? God is a flame of fire. How could you attach yourself to Hashem, to the Shekhinah? So the Gemara answers, it doesn't mean to God, it means to the Torah scholars, which basically means that if you attach yourself to the Torah scholars, it means you're attaching yourself to God. And Chassidus explains that this basically means it's righteous people. It doesn't just mean people who learn a lot of Torah, because just learning Torah doesn't make you special. I mean, it is something special, but it just makes you so great that because you have more knowledge, everybody should attach themselves to it. Like we learn about Doeg or Adomi, who was the greatest Torah scholar of the time. He was the head of the Sanhedrin. Nobody could argue with him, and he was a big Rasha. He used it because everything he learned was only in order to gain respect from others, in order that he should be able to use it to against other people. His whole Torah was external, didn't really affect him. He had terrible character traits and terrible behavior, and he's the one who gave King Saul permission to give the wife of King David, Michal, to someone else. He said. He gave an explanation to everything. He says, look, this guy is considered that he's rebelling, and it's only rebelling. So that's the first thing. He gave him permission to kill David. He said, David is rebelling because he told him the fact that Shalom was trying to kill him, and then he ran away. He says, if you leave the king's palace while you're at service, that's rebelling. You'll have to kill him. And then he already sent messengers to catch him in the morning, but then his wife helped him escape through the window in the night, and then he escaped. So he gave him permission, he gave him a halachic permission to kill David because he's rebelling. And then he said, if he's rebelling, he deserves death penalty. There's a concept that whatever a person, there's a concept, this concept obviously exists, but in other things. Like it says, if something is, like for example, if someone kills somebody who's about to die, he doesn't get killed for it. Why? Not that it's okay, because he's about to die anyways. So there's a concept like that, because it's as if he's dead already.
That's not the concept here now.
No. So he said because he was trying to tell him because he deserves to die, and the verdict says that he should get killed. It's as if he's dead, and you could have his wife marry someone else already. But that person was a big tzaddik because he never touched her. But anyway, so this was doing. So we see that you could be the greatest, that's a big extreme, Dog and Achitophel, that King David said about them, but these guys, they both died, he said, you shouldn't have more than a half of their days, and officially maximum days is 70, 35, they both died at the age of, before the age of 35, or the age of 35. So these great Torah scholars of the time of King David, unfortunately, had very bad conduct and very terrible character traits. And we understand that it's not just about studying of Torah. The Talmud says it clearly. Someone just studies Torah and doesn't practice it. Obviously, it's even worse. It makes it even worse because someone who doesn't know when he commits a sin, he didn't know. So it's. Even though he did it on purpose, it says even this donot is like shkagot. Of course, he is responsible because he should have learned, but he didn't really know. So it's not as severe. But when you see someone who knows, even when he does something unintentional, it's like it's intentional because he knows this stuff. So the fact that he's more knowledgeable makes his status even worse. So obviously we're not talking about someone who knows Torah and doesn't practice. We're talking about someone who studies Torah and observes the mitzvot. So that's number one. Chassidus deeper says not just someone who practices what he learns. Someone that he's the kiddush of the Torah, that he internalized, like we learned in chapter 5. What's so great about Torah study that brings it to a greater level of Zveikus Hashem, even more than just doing a mitzvah. So someone as a tzaddik reaches a very strong level of zveikus and intimacy with God, and when you are attached yourself to the Talmidei Chachamim, to real Talmidei Chachamim, to the real tzaddikim, to the real Torah scholars who are really close with Hashem, it's like you are attaching yourself to Hashem. This is what the Gemara says, and this is mitzvah. And based on what we explained last week, it makes perfect sense, because if we think about a body, we understand that if the body is connected to the brains, through the brains, the person is connected with his parents, with his source. And the same with the tzaddikim, who are like the head of Bnei Israel. Through the attachments of the tzaddikim, we have a much stronger connection and much revealed connection with Hashem. Okay, now we're going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is very practical. It's very practical. I don't know if it's for us, but it's practical in general. It's talking about bringing a child to the world, and it's talking about the importance of the purity of the parents when they are about to bring a child to the world. Okay, so like there's a story of a woman who just had a baby, and she was passing by the Rebbe. The Rebbe was giving out dollars and giving brachos, and she asked the Rebbe for advice. She just had her first baby, so the Rebbe said to her, "You're 9 months late," because the effect that we have on the children is even before. It's from the time of conception. We understand that when we bring a child to the world, we have the level, our spiritual level. I'll give you an example. I don't know if it's so connected to what we're learning, but there is an interesting. It's coming out for Pesach, so we could talk about it. There is There is a story that we read on Pesach of Elazar ben Azariah. It says that I am like a 70-year-old man. He had a white beard, and he was just 18 years old. So what happened? They fired Rabbi Gamliel, and they were looking for somebody, and there was a whole discussion until they figured that he's the best candidate. And when he, so he came home, he said, the rabbi chose me to be the head of the yeshiva, the leader of the Jewish people. He's 18 years old. His wife said, well, you're kidding, you're young, you're 18 years old, don't accept it, you can't do it. So, he went to sleep, he woke up in the morning with 8 strands of white beard. So he says, well, you see, so he looked like a 70-year-old man. So the rabbi asks him this story, he says, what, it's a game? I mean, if he's not worthy, he's not worthy, what, because he has white beard, now he's okay? Now he can do it, his wife is now accepting it? So the rabbi explains that really, spiritually, he was on that level. It says in the Arizal, the Arizal explains that he was 10 generations from Ezra, from Ezra Sofer, and he was really spiritually. I mean, we don't understand what spiritual years mean, but spiritual years means, like it says about Avraham Avinu Baba Yamim. It says in the Zohar that he was Avraham Avinu, whatever amount of years he was at that time. Every day was filled with spirituality. So he was not just age of whatever 170. In physical years. Also, he was 170 spiritually, because every day of his life was filled with spirituality. So you could look at somebody, let's say somebody who lived 100 years, could be spiritually only 20 years old, because if you take all their time that they actually utilize, it's 20 years. So every neshama has to come, we spoke about it again and again, till it accomplishes all the amount of years that's necessary, which is a big thing. So this neshama, by Elazar ben Azariah, was already the age of 70 spiritually, because it was a build-up because it was a Gilgal. This neshama came, it was a reincarnation. Every soul comes again and again. So it was already on the level of 70 years old. So that's why he was spiritually, according to the Rizal, on the level of 70 years old. So the Rebbe explains that the fact that he had the white beard, that this miracle happened, was just to reveal in the physical world what was true spiritually. Okay, so based on that, the Rebbe explains an interesting story, interesting thing in the Gemara in Bava Basra. He talks about, I think it was Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda had 2 children. One is Rav Ktina, and one was was the other one? One was young, one is old. One is Ktina, Rav. I forgot already. You want to bring Bava Basra? I'll see. Gemara Bava Basra, yeah. Big book? Yeah, I just look it up. I forgot the Ktina, and yeah, I'll look inside. Okay, so. Basically, when the parents bring a child to the world, based on their level and the spiritual level in general, that has effect on the child's soul. Okay, soon we're going to explain which part of the soul, but in general it has effect on the soul. Not only that, especially their thoughts and their state of mind while they're together to conceive this child. That's a very strong impact. Okay, that's called lekadesh atzmo. This is what the Zohar says. What it says in the Zohar, ubezohar chadash, shayikar talui shekadesh atzmo b'shas tashmish dafka. That the most important thing, that the parents sanctify themselves, and when they have intimacy, they are thinking holy thoughts, and holy thoughts mean that they're not just looking to fulfill their desire. It's also that they understand that it's a mitzvah. It's the greatest. It's a holy thing, because a husband and wife are 2 parts of the soul, and when a husband and wife are together, it's like Yom Kippur, when the neshama is, like we learned in the other classes, that in Yom Kippur your neshama is attaching itself to the other higher part of the soul. So that's Yom Kippur is the holiest time. So that's also intimacy according to Judaism. It's the holiest time spiritually, because there is a unity of 2 souls, of the husband and wife, two parts of one soul. And it's also, there's a lot of other ideas that we learn in the Sfarim, like why it's a holy thing. It's helping that the husband should not have. It's fulfilling it when a person is able to satisfy his desires. It will help him to prevent having machshava zaros, having strange thoughts. When that's why it's important for everybody to be married. It's helping him to prevent that he shouldn't have strange thoughts. He should be able to be focused in Avodat Hashem and have only holy thoughts throughout the day, because he's satisfying his thirst. So as long as this is basically to bringing holiness in anything you do means that you're also thinking thoughts L'Shem Shammai. You're not just thinking about you're eating. You're not just eating to satisfy to enjoy the food or to just, which is very coarse, or even to be just satisfied from the food. Then you didn't bring any holiness to food. But if you're thinking I'm eating to get strength, so then I could serve Hashem better, you made it holy. So too, the intimacy is very important to make it holy. To have, we cannot stop our pleasure because we're physical people. But bringing holiness means that we're having holy thoughts and we're thinking holy things at the time. And obviously, that's already not needless to talk about the importance of having good feelings in the husband and wife, and the time it's not that nobody's forcing anybody into it. So all these things affect that the child should be greater. And it says, so the Zohar says that the ignorant Jews, they don't know about this, so unfortunately they're not able to bring that holiness to their children when they bring them to the world. I just want to bring this Gemara. It talks about
Those are not check.
Oh, yeah, I know it's on the yeah. Yeah, I'm going to see it. It's here. Okay. One was named Rav Ktina, one was named Rav Kshisha. Kashish, like older. So who do you think was older, who was younger? One came Rav Ktina, so you think he's younger. Katan is small. And Kshisha means older, so he means older. Really, Rav Kshisha, he named it. Rav Ktina was older. He named his son Ktina, which means Katan, small, because he had him when he was younger, when the father and mother were younger. And Kshisha, he called him Kshisha not because he was old, he was much younger, but he called him Kshisha because the parents were older at the time. So it didn't make sense. You see two brothers, one is older than one is younger, one is older. The one who's younger, one is older, everybody called Ktina. The one who was younger called Kshisha. Didn't make sense. So Chassidus explains, why would he name the children based on him being old or young? He should name them based on if they're young or old. So Chassidus explains that the one that was born when he was younger, so because he was on a lower level spiritual, because great people, with time they reach higher and higher. Because they're constantly learning Torah, they're constantly doing more mitzvahs, they reach higher and higher. So when they bring a child to the world when they're younger, that child is going to be lower level than a child that they're going to be brings to the world in later age when they're on a higher level. Sometimes you see it in certain people that after their last child is greater. The more you go, that the children later on are greater than the children that came first. I mean, the Bechor is always a challenge, but that's a different story. But in general, as you go on, those who are born later could be on a higher level because their parents were on a higher level. So he said, this is the one who was born first. He called him Ktina because he's small and he's on a smaller level because we were younger and he is smaller. And the one who was born when he was older, he says he is Kshisha, not only me. He's also, not only I'm old, he is older. He is because he has all these work of myself all these years. So the same with Rabbi Ben Azariah, that he had the work of those who worked on his neshama in the previous Gilgulit. So this story, and also what we just read in the Zohar, we understand that parents have a lot of influence on their children, their state of spirituality before conception, before they bring the child to the world. Okay? So in general, their spiritual state, and especially at the time of intimacy. Now, at the same time, it says in Kabbalah that we have no control which kind of neshama we bring down to the world. So I'm going to explain it first outside, then we'll read it inside. So the way Hasidus and Kabbalah explains it, that in every child, in every person, there's three souls, and that's what we started to talk about the other day. We usually talk about two souls, but it's really three souls. Okay, so the one soul is a physical soul. This is the animal soul, physical soul, part of our lives. That's really we're not talking about that soul that we spoke about in chapter 1. But then there is another two souls. One is a godly soul that Jewish people have, and then there's an intellectual soul. The intellectual soul, obviously, every human being has. The godly soul is what we spoke about before. Okay, we spoke about before that every Jew has a neshama that is originally from the highest level of Chachma Batzilus, and everybody gets it differently. Some, like we said, that the neshama depends on its journey. Some get affected by the journey more, some less, and therefore there's different types of neshamas. There are high neshamas, low neshamas. That we don't really have so much control. Hashem decides which neshama our child will have, but we have 100% control over the intellectual soul. And what is so important about the intellectual soul? Let's talk about this first, and then we'll talk about the other parts. The intellectual soul is the intermediary between our neshama and ourselves. Okay? When we think about ourselves, we think about the challenge that each one of us has. Okay? We have a challenge because we have what we spoke about in chapter 1, the animal soul, which is self-centered, which is the cause of all kinds of negative attribute traits, right? Like arrogance, like anger, like laziness, like desiring physical things. And that soul is really part of our lives, right? Then we have the other soul that we spoke about in chapter 2, in the beginning of chapter 2, of the godly soul. But the godly soul is lofty. It's really, first of all, it comes much later in our lives. It comes mostly at bar mitzvah, and also it's more spiritual. It's not physical. It's hard for us to connect with it. It's hard for us to. It's like, and also Hashem made it in a way that it's enclosed within the animal soul. So it's like really, like we have to do exodus in order to connect with our neshama. It's Yetziat Mitzrayim. That's why every day when we say the Parsha of Shema, which is a kind of exodus, because we are talking about the V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, loving Hashem. That love for Hashem is buried inside the animal soul. We all know about the love for the world. So that's why the Parsha of Tzitzit, in Yetziat Mitzrayim, according to Chassidus, according to Kabbalah, why do we talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim right after Parsha Shema? Because if we fulfilled the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael, V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, we did Yetziat Mitzrayim. It's a big exodus because we took out our inner love for Hashem that is buried inside love for the world, and we took it out. We took it out of the Mitzrayim, out of its limitations, out of the Mitzarim and Gulim. So this is our challenge, to connect between our godly soul and our physical soul. That the godly soul should go out of the boundary, go out of the concealment of the animal soul, and not only that it shouldn't, that it should be the other way around. Not only that the animal soul should not cover up on the godly soul should be that also the animal soul should be refined. How do we do that? So we have to have an intermediary, and that's the intellectual soul. Why is the intellect the way that we could connect with our physical soul? So this is, we think about your emotions and think about your intellect. Your emotions are very selfish. Okay? What does the heart want? The heart wants what's good for me. Okay? The heart is about the way I am. If your nature is, for example, that you are a kind person, so your heart is going to be loving and caring, and this is going to be you. You're not going to be able to change that. The heart is the way I am. I desire what I desire, and I hate what I hate, and I connect with what I connect. The way I am, that's what I am. There's no changing. The intellect is very powerful. Our intellect has the ability to understand any kind of religion, any kind of idea. In a way, our intellect has a certain level of, maybe you call it humility or open-mindedness, that it's not just about me. It's about understanding others, understanding what's right, even if I don't want it, even if I don't think it's good for me, I could understand it. So our intellect is the method that we could connect the neshama with our body. Okay? In other words, let's think, for example. Let's take a scenario. You wake up in the morning, and right away your physical soul is working. I just want to have a good meal now. I want to have a good job. I want to make money. Whatever it is. The godly soul comes to the picture, and you don't want to even listen to it. And the animal soul, it wants to daven, it wants to do holy things, and just wants to just wants to follow God. Now, there is no connection. It's like you're trying to take a big Rosh Hashiva and put him inside a club. Like there's there's no relationship. The intellect has, in order to be an intermediary, for example, if you want to translate from Chinese to Spanish, so you have to know Spanish and Chinese. So the intermediary has to know both languages. The intellect knows the language of the animal soul and the language of the godly soul. Why? Because on the one hand, what's intellect? Intellect is the way I understand things. It's about I. The way I understand, I have to understand it. So it's about me. So our heart listens to the intellect, because the emotion says it's not. The intellect says, I understand this is the right thing to do. Okay? So the emotion says, the heart says, well, I don't like to do it. For example, if you understand in your brain that this food will be very healthy for you, but it doesn't taste good, so in your heart you don't want to touch this food. You don't feel desire for it. But the intellect says, it's good for me. It's going to be good for me. So the heart could relate to it because it's coming from the same point of view. They both have a certain ego. The heart says, I want to like it. The brain says, I want to understand that it's good for me. So they both it's about I understand it's good. So it's me understanding. So the heart could relate to the brain. But the godly soul doesn't come with that point of view. The godly soul doesn't say, I understand it's good for me. The godly soul says, I understand it's good for God. So the godly soul is talking a different language. The animal soul wants to it's about I, and the godly soul is like a child. Like we said before, the godly soul is like a child of Hashem that just wants to do what Hashem wants, what's good for him. I don't care about me. So they're talking two different languages. But the intellect soul could understand. It has the ability to connect with the heart, to connect with myself, connect with my ego, because even though I don't feel like doing it, but I understand, and I understand it, so I should do it. I understand it's me. I'm doing it because of myself, not because of anybody else. Now the godly soul has the ability to connect with the intellect, because the intellect has a certain level of nullification, a certain level of open-mindedness. It's not just about if it's going to be good for me or not, or it's not just about if I'm going to like it or not. It's more about if it's right or wrong. So the godly soul, so the intellect is more of a refined part of our character. Our physical soul or our heart is more animalistic, more ego. The intellect is more, has a certain level of nullification, a certain level of humility, a certain level of doing what's right because I understand it's right. Not necessarily I care about myself, my own ego, even if I'm going to lose out of it, I'm still going to do it because this is the right thing. So this is the greatness of the intellect. So the intellect, it could be a good garment, a good way that the godly soul could talk to the person, to the ego of the person, and refine the person. Okay, so now what happens is in other words, the brain is like the computer of the person. It's like the intellect. If a person has a refined intellectual soul or refined intellect, he's going to be able to connect with more refined ideas and more. Some people, you could try to learn about God and they won't be vessels for it. It's too lofty for them. And also in learning, sometimes some people are able to learn very refined things. Some people need to see, they can't. It's too refined, too lofty for them. So the intellect, which is has, like we're going to learn in chapter 12, that has the ability of controlling the person and sending messages to the heart and to the whole being of the person, has this understanding to the godly soul. It has to understand, but it has the ability to understand things that are more lofty. So now the parents, that's what the Zohar is talking about when the Zohar says that you have full control over the child's soul. It's not talking about the godly soul. It's talking about the intellectual soul, which is the soul that is the garment. That is when we call it shofar. I don't know if it's right. There's a shofar in Hebrew. You use shofar like it's the mouth of the godly soul. The godly soul is expressing itself only through the intellect. So now think, for example, if someone is very rich and he comes to a place with beggar's clothes, nobody will respect him. Someone very poor wearing fancy clothes, everybody will respect him. The clothing is the way you're able to express yourself. Okay? So imagine if you have a child, and Hashem granted the child with an amazing neshama, amazing godly soul, but the parents unfortunately were not so holy and refined, and because of that they're brought to the child a very unrefined intellectual soul. So now this neshama is in a big challenge. It can't really express itself, even though the neshama itself is so powerful. But it's like you're putting a very smart man in a country that nobody speaks their language. Like you take all these engineers of Russian engineers who made Aliyah to Israel. They didn't know what to do here, even though they were so smart. They were stuck. They couldn't utilize their wisdom. Right? Every Russian is an engineer usually. So it's a big problem. And on the other hand, even if Hashem granted your child with a very simple soul, but it's after all, every soul is a soul. Every soul is godly. Every soul is powerful, even the most simple soul. And if you made sure to give your child a very refined character, very refined, what we call intellectual soul, the soul is to communicate with the body, communicate with the person, and make a big difference to the child. And before we continue, I just want to talk about a very interesting letter of the Rebbe. I don't remember the background of this letter, but the Rebbe is basically explaining in this letter why this generation, why we have difficulty raising children in this generation. First, the Rebbe said that it's written in the Mishnah, because it says before the coming of Mashiach, it's going to be a very rebellious generation. But the Rebbe said it's not just Torah Sinai, there's also a logical reason for it. And the Rebbe said that, like we're learning now in Tanya, that there is that every person in this world has the holy part, the godly soul, and again, like no matter who you are, you have a godly soul. Even the most simple Jew has a very powerful godly soul. It's not like it's like we're saying. It's like imagine you think about godly soul. Just think about a coal of fire. So one guy has a big coal of fire, one has a small coal of fire, but it's all fire. It's not like okay, I have little neshama. Everybody has fire. Everybody has a neshama. It's not like because a person has a lower level of neshama, and this generation in general we have low neshamas. It's still it's a neshama. It's a part of God, and we have also a physical soul. And what we have to worry about the most is there shouldn't be a blockage. The godly side of us should be able to talk to our human side of us. And there's two things, one that we just mentioned, and one more thing that I want to mention now, that could cause the separation or the blockage between the two. One is the purity of family, and one is kashrus. So, because kashrus is different than all other mitzvahs. Kashrus means keep a kosher, right? It's different than all the mitzvahs. All mitzvahs that we do affect us. But internally, the most that affects us is kosher. Because what we eat becomes part of us. And with children, the Rebbe explains, it's even more. Because because children, because all of us, what happens to us when we eat food becomes part of us. But it doesn't have as much effect as children that they grow from the food. The food is creating them. So there was someone who wrote the letter how with children he's more maker, more lenient, and he's less machmir with kosher. The Rebbe said the opposite. With children you have to be more machmir because their whole being is being created now, and you want it to be created in the most spiritual, holy way. Like we say about Moshe Rabbeinu, that if he would have nursed from the non-Jewish woman, even though it was kosher, it's kosher for a baby, but because it came from non-kosher food, you wouldn't be able to speak to the Shekhinah. And there is a medrash or a pirush that says the reason why the story happened that he took the colt and put it in his tongue, in the mouth, because of a few drops of milk that came into his mouth when she was trying to nurse him, he had to burn it out, or something like that. So he really had to be purified from all that are kosher, so he could speak to the Shekhinah. I mean, obviously Moshe Rabbeinu was on the highest level. He needed the tikkun for those few drops. So this is there's a lot to talk about, but this is in general one major thing that impacts the relationship between the neshama and the physical soul, because it really causes to unrefine the essence of our character, our physical character, which is the intellect. And if unfortunately someone has strong unrefined it by taking not so kosher or whatever food, or purity of family. Purity of family, by the way, doesn't only mean, the Rebbe's right, not only mean what we spoke about before, to be holy, also to simply keep the halachas properly. And unfortunately the Rebbe said that today people are very lenient with both, with kashrus and with laws of purity of family. There's times when a woman is a nida that they're supposed to stay apart from each other, and today people not so machmir with these things. And the Rebbe said these things are very critical, not for you, for the child, because the child that comes to the world through proper conduct of the parents before bringing the child to the world and mikveh and everything else, it makes a big difference on him. There's a story of someone, I think came from Russia, and he brought a picture to and he brought a picture of I think it was a woman, she brought a, maybe it was a husband and wife. They brought a picture of the Rebbe of their family, and the Rebbe looked at one of the children and he wanted to know about this child. And it came out that when this child came to the world, they were in Russia. It was in the middle of the winter, and the mother had to go to the water, and it was freezing cold. And she went and it was probably also stormy. And she went into the water, and it was a big Mesirat Nefesh to make sure to go to mikvah before so she could be pure for her husband. And the Rebbe could see in the purity in the child that he came from a big Mesirat Nefesh for purity of family, of the parents. So these two things make a big impact, and I mean, besides everything affects, but these are the most major things that impact the essence of the child, which the neshama will be able to connect with him. Now, and this is 100% dependent on the parents. Now, going back to the neshama, the God, the soul itself. Of course, everybody wants that their child should be on a high level, and there's different Sfarim that teach us when we could bring very high neshamas, like Friday night and after Chatzos, all kinds of things like that. But it says that after all, we could do our ishtadlus, but nothing's guaranteed. Okay? Usually, if Hashem sees that parents are trying to be holy and they're trying hard, Hashem is going to help them bring a very high level of neshama. But there's no guarantees. A person could be just like a parnasa. Sometimes a person could be perfect and have no parnasa. Because Hashem decided that he should, for some reason, that he should not have so much money. So it's like your lot. You can have a child, Hashem decided that his neshama will not be so high. So let's talk about a tzaddik. Could be a big tzaddik, parents are tzaddikim, and the child could have a high neshama, low neshama. There's no guarantees. Usually, tzaddikim will bring down higher neshamas, but there's no guarantees. But then it goes the other way also. There could be simple parents that will have children who will have very high neshama, and that doesn't make sense. I mean, we understand that if the parents are great, so Hashem could sometimes give them a gift and give the child a high neshama, or not give them the gift. It's like when you give a gift, you don't always have to give a gift. But when you have parents are very simple and they're like ignorant Jews, or they're not affiliated at all, why should they get a high neshama? So Kabbalah explains that when Hashem is about, when there's a high neshama in heavens, and they want to bring it down to the world, there's right away a big fight, because Hashem set up the system. There's Malachim, Yechesim, and Gvura. There is some who want that this world should have a lot of miracles and Chesed, and there's those who want more Gvura, less revelation, more challenges, less special neshamas. So when the high neshamas to come down, there's a big machlekes in heaven, and it's a challenge. So what's the compromise? That we're going to bring down this high neshama to a family who are really far from Judaism, or not so holy. And that everybody, it's a compromise, because those who want to bring down the neshama down, okay, we're going to bring down the neshama, and those who don't want say, okay, it's not going to make a difference anyway, because it's going to be it's going to be a child who will not be raised in a holy way, so you will never really connect with his neshama, and it's going to be a waste. It's not going to happen. And we read a lot of times the stories of tzaddikim who looked after special people. They saw that they had special neshamas and they brought them back. But the most amazing thing is that the barrier that we spoke about, right? That if the parents are very simple and unholy, then the essence of the character of the child is so unrefined that the godly soul doesn't have a way to express itself. But when it's a very powerful soul, it could break through any curtains. And a lot of times you see with Baal Tshuva, people who came back to Judaism, you see they have a powerful neshama. And it's an amazing thing that they besides logically that it's hard, you're brought up a certain way, what you're doing is, your family doesn't understand what you're doing, and your friends, and you're basically going, it's an amazing thing about Tshuva, that goes from, but also spiritually it's hard, because you have all this unrefined, unholy inside you, which the parents, whether they want or not, they give it to the child, and the neshama has to break it. So this is the good news. Okay, so this is what happens at the end. Okay, so this is the good news about it, that the same time that we spoke about that unfortunately in our generations there's both of these problems of purity of family and kashrus, but it doesn't mean that these things cannot be fixed. It could be fixed. For example, with kashrus, the way we do tshuva is, for example, if there was a lack of kashrus, now we're being even more careful with kashrus, and we encourage others to be more careful with kashrus. And the same with in general, the child could always work on it. It's not like we're able to work on it, but it's much harder. It's like what it says, that when you bring a sandik and a moyel or yiras shemayim, it's your child is going to it's going to be I don't know the lashon, but it's basically saying that it's far from a sin. This child may go throughout many years of life and he will not sin, because the sandak and this moyel, if they're great people, they're bringing so much holiness on the child that it will become part of him, and it will be harder for him to sin. It will be harder for the tumah to take over. So similarly, the other way around, that when a child is brought to the world through unholiness, or he was raised with not kosher, so it created a certain unrefinedness, and it's creating a big challenge, right? But it doesn't mean that he can't overcome it. It's like when somebody, I don't know, maybe gain a lot of weight. I don't know if it's a good example, but it's not like he can't, and it's harder for him to do a lot of things. But obviously there's what to do. It's not like it never. They say in Yiddish, in Token Farfalin, it's never too late. It's like Pesach Sheni. You always have Pesach Sheni. Okay, let's read it inside what we just learned. We basically now finished till the end of Perek Beis. We're just going to read it inside. Umashe Katuv Bezohar. What it says in the Zohar, Bezohar Chadash. Shaikar. Chapter, page 10, and it's 8 lines from the top.
There's a Zion on the top left.
On the top it's page Zion, on the bottom page 10. It says, Shaikar Talui, the main thing it depends. There's another Tanya there. That the whole being or life of the child depends. The soul of the child depends mostly on the parent. And the time of the intimacy, they're sanctifying themselves, like we explained before. Unfortunately, the children of the ignorant Jews, they don't know about it. They don't think of all these thoughts, and therefore they don't have that ability to have high soul. So he says that we're not talking about this the Shama itself. Okay, this is what we were trying to emphasize. It's not the neshama itself. It's the garment. It's the intellectual soul, which is the way the godly soul could communicate. This is because there is no person who has nefesh, ruach, and shema, which is the three parts of the soul, nefesh, ruach, and shema, that doesn't have a garment from the soul of the essence of the parent. So, in other words, the parents are giving the child a garment. They're creating, when they bring the child to the world, they're creating a garment to that neshama. Okay, which we call, it's not written here, but it's called in Kabbalah language also intellectual soul. And all the mitzvot that this child has to do throughout his life, it's always through this garment. This is the garment, which is again the intellectual soul, the essence of the child, that through that the soul connects with the body and does the mitzvah. Every time Hashem brings a hashpah, a spiritual, a physical hashpah from Hashem, it's all coming through the garment. And if the father and the mother will sanctify themselves, they're going to be able to draw upon their soul of their son a holy garment. And even if you were lucky that you brought a high neshama to your child, still the neshama needs that sanctification, because again, like we said before, that if the child has a very high neshama and a very coarse garment, it's going to be very difficult. And that's another point that it says that every neshama needs that help, because there's two types of neshamas. If it's a new neshama, it's challenging for the child because it's the first time it has to face the challenges of this world, so it's very difficult. And even if the neshama is recycled or recoronated, so obviously it has accumulation of negative things did in the past, and that also makes it hard for this neshama. So that's the neshama has to come again to make a tikkun for whatever he did wrong in the previous gilgul. So no matter what kind of neshama it is, the neshama needs assistance, and the parents are able to give that assistance to the children by purifying themselves and bringing more of a refined garment on the soul of the child by making themselves holy at the time of intimacy. That's the garment. But the neshama itself, there's no guarantees. This is guaranteed that if you are pure, you're going to give your child a pure garment. It's a set thing. But the neshama itself, there's no guarantees. There could be a neshama of a great man, like in the previous gilgul, this neshama was by a great person, and this now is coming down to this world and is going to be a neshama of a son of a child of a person who is very, very simple and low. As well as this is written by the Arizal. Any questions or comments?
So you say you should connect yourself to a tzaddik, but you mentioned that you...
So one second, before you ask the question, finalizing what we said in this chapter, basically the chapter, it's an amazing thing because the chapter tells us, there's 3 points in the chapter. The first thing, it tells us the greatness of our godly soul, that's part of Hashem, which is so powerful, but then it tells us that in order that this amazing soul that we have within ourselves, like we said before, that just like we understand, nobody could rule over God. God has so much power. So we have in ourselves this godly soul, this part of God, that gives us the ability to overcome any type of challenge, physical or spiritual. So we understand that we have a gift, this godly soul, but in order to get the full use of this neshama, we need to do two things that we're learning about in this pair. One is the veikos, the connection to tzaddikim. And by the way, one of the ways to connect with tzaddikim is also through learning their Torah, like we're doing right now, and listening to their guidings. Okay, so that's one important thing that helps us to connect, like we said before, to our God, the soul, because, like we said before, the brain is where the revelation of the connection to the source is, and that's why the student neshama tzaddikim, our neshama, becomes more revealed and more powerful. And then second thing is what we just learned, that the parents could help with before they bring the child to the world, to make sure that to make the being of the child, or we'll call it the garment of the soul, be more refined, and then it will be possible, it will be easier for the God of the soul to communicate with him, and it will be able to have a much greater impact on him. And that also has to do with kashrus, which comes afterwards. You got your question answered?
Or no, I was going to say, how do we know who the tzaddikim are?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, we know that there was a tzaddik. We know.
Because you were saying that there was these two.
Yeah. I mean, the great. We try to connect.
Chacham that ended up being not righteous, not tzaddik.
Yeah. So obviously, we're talking about somebody who you see that not only he knows a lot, but also his conduct. And we have a lot of leaders. I mean, we don't know who is a tzaddik, who is leader, but we obviously know who are the leaders of Am Yisrael. We could see people who are Torah scholars, who have great conduct, and they live a holy spiritual life. And we try to have a certain connect with them by listening if they're telling us to do something, or whatever it is, or learn the Torah.
And each person we're not what we look like. Just a bodysuit. We are just soul people. What's that?
We're all soul people.
I'm a soul man.
Soul in
I'm a soul man.
we have more souls, but this is generally 3 souls. Yeah.
I was under the impression that the Jew has the animal soul and the godly soul, and the godly soul is actually connected with the intellect soul.
Yeah.
And the non-Jew just has the animal soul.
No, an intellectual soul also non-Jews have. Intellectual, everybody has.
The what?
Intellectual soul is the intellect. It's like an intellectual soul.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has intellectual soul. We just have additional godly soul, which is that special revelation of God that we have. That's what it means, because really everything is godly. But we spoke about a few classes ago that godly soul means this special feeling and awareness of God that we have more than others.
So then the non-Jew would have the 2 souls.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Actually, I'm dovetailing on back what he was asking. The intellectual soul, is that just our actual intellect?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's basically our essence. It's based on intellect. I don't know exactly how to define it, but it's based on intellect. In a way, it's part of our physical soul. In other words, our physical soul has the animal part, human part, maybe you could say. Mm-hmm. More is more refined, one is less refined. One is more egoistic, one is less egoistic. Okay. But or you could call it the way it's written in Kabbalah. It's the garment of the God, so the way God is connecting with the person.
That's why when the breeding of the Jews, they show them the left hand. Each one of us have a self and a godly soul.
Which so you have no control of the godly soul?
Yeah. No, we do have control.
Which one's the one you don't have control?
No. The animal soul is part of the... No, we said that we don't have full control. In other words, the godly soul is considered a gift. A gift, it's like the intellectual soul, which is the physical being, the essence of the being of the child, that's 100% your control. It's like when you work an hour, you get paid for this hour. So it's like the more you work on yourself, the greater the essence of the physical being, this is true with Jews and non-Jews, the more the essence of physical being of your son will be.
I know, but
now the godly soul.
No, you described earlier on, forgive me to make sure I'm expressing this right. The souls that travel the 40.
Yeah. So now.
Some get Jews on the way down and some go on scale.
Okay, so this
What's
one.
the criteria?
Okay, so this godly soul, this criteria is considered a gift. And what is a gift? A gift means when you please someone, they may give you a gift, right? They may not, and that's what it means. That this is a gift. I mean, Hashem is not guaranteeing you that because you're so holy, your child is definitely going to have a high neshama. But most likely, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. Probably, the more you're probably going to get. Hashem is probably going to give you for a nice avodat Hashem, a nice work on yourself and your family life and everything. You're probably going to bring down a high neshama, but Hashem could make. Not necessarily. It doesn't have to do it. There's no. It's like a lot. It's a goral. It's not. At the same time, there is a certain. There is a certain. It's like the Gemara says. There's a Gemara that says like this: that when someone gives a gift, the Gemara says like this: "I lo avid naichalei." I don't remember the exact lashon. Lo yayiv lamatnata, something like that. That when you give someone a gift, obviously he gave you some nachat ruach. He gave you some. He pleased you. You wouldn't just give gift to random people. So that's the concept, that forgive, you didn't do much, like you're getting a lot more than what you did, but there's no guarantees.
But the concept that God is going to reward somebody and give a big neshama to his child is not fair to the child. The child has to live with that neshama, and what kind of neshama he got was because of whether his parents did something to deserve the gift. But why should the child suffer with a low neshama if that's what he got?
Okay.
It should have been based on his merit, not his parents' merit.
Right, that's true. Well, look, first of all, we have to realize that any neshama is great. Neshama is great. And also, it doesn't take away the free choice of the child. And also, the child could reach any level. You could reach a level of a tzaddik. You could have. There's something called, we'll learn later on. They're called ibur, which means that if you try really hard, it's also a gift. But Hashem could give you a personal gift and put in your neshama in pregnancy, so to speak, another neshama much higher. So you could. There's no limits to what could happen in your life. It's not like. But look, it's like imagine somebody. Two parents, one child is born to parents who are rich, one child born to parents who are poor. Is it fair? I mean, that's the way it is. You're born to the family. Hashem makes that decision.